The Los Angeles Police Department is one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the world. It's led by Chief Michel Moore, who's been at the helm since 2018.
And we're honored to have the chief with us today in studio this morning. This is the first of our series of interviews with the chief. Thank you so much for making the time. I know you're busy.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
I want to start with the body cam footage that you released recently. There have been 3 deaths in LAPD custody. 2 of those people were shot. One of the young men was tased before he later died. Mayor Bass, who has called for police reform, is calling this deeply disturbing. Is this a use of excessive force by your department?
Oh, it's much too soon to tell on that. After a year that we saw a reduction in our use of deadly force with a reduction in officer-involved shootings, and we went 7 weeks without any such incident. The first couple days of this year, we saw these 3 instances, one right after the other, and it concerned me as each event does. Anytime we see an incident involving a death of someone that we come in contact with, we look at them very critically. And I thought that it was also important that while we release critical incident videos and what information we have in each instance within 45 days as a matter of routine, these instances, particularly the first one, drew my attention that I felt it was necessary to bring it to the public much earlier. So a week later, we assembled the videos that we had, the radio accounts, the information that we knew, and put it in a context of what each of these 3 instances, far apart from one another, unassociated with one another, with the exception of each involving an individual we believe was having some type of mental health or substance crisis in which came into our responsibilities of responding. One involving a restraining order, a second one with a man attacking motorists and threatening an individual with a knife, and then a third one with an individual who had been involved in a collision and then attempted to flee, take a vehicle, we understand, and then as officers tried to overcome that, resulted in a use of force, and then hours later, his death. Each of them had circumstances, I believe, that I need to bring this up, recognize the public's concern, and tell the public what we know right now, and also give the assurance that we will conduct a full and complete investigation in each of these circumstances. And we'll evaluate them in relationship to what our policies are, our expectations, our training. In the first event, persons experiencing a mental health crisis, I was disappointed that the early understanding is that we did not utilize resources or call resources that may have helped us in that situation. That is the most striking aspect. But even in the last event, where we saw the use of a taser, a less lethal device, and we see the use of it and the fact that it was used repeatedly over a short period of time.
Yeah, 6 times.
And in understanding whether that contributed to this man's death or not is still unknown, as well as the bodily force that was used. But recognizing how that would raise questions with the public, I want the public to know that we're on it. Also, we've talked with our people internally on both those instances, the first one and the last one, about expectations that we rely on our co-response model, that we get mental health clinicians out there as quickly as possible to help inform us and assist us. And then also in the use of the taser, something that we've been looking at and studying as far as what advancements we can use with that weapon system as it evolves to make it safer, but also rely upon the officer's judgment and the critical importance that they continually evaluate. Is that system working, or should they transition into something else?
Well, that's one of the pieces of this, is that you brought up policies and the need to look at policies if there is going to be change. And obviously there does have to be a lot of discussion before some of these get implemented when it comes to policies at the department. But many saying the language is very vague when it comes specifically to tasering a suspect. Are you looking at the policy? Do you think it's too vague?
I don't think at this point. I think I understand the criticism. The use of the taser is a device that over the last year we used 200 times. When we look back 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that number was 300 times, 400 times. So we've reduced the number of instances where we use that system to effect an arrest, to overcome resistance, to effectively allow us to use a tool that doesn't require an officer to use more force. Secondly, the average number of activations has been 2 over the period of years. So this is an outlying event. We need to look at the drive stun as a technique that was used and understand, is that still effective today? We're working with the manufacturer to understand, is there another system, an enhancement that can avoid the use of that drive stun, if possible, to minimize the impact of that. Yeah. And again, we don't know, and it's premature to understand whether or not the taser itself and the bodily force contributed to this man's unfortunate death. And my condolences to the Anderson family, and as well as to the family of the other two men. Any loss of life is something that we take great concern about. But I'm also recognize that in each of those instances, officers displayed an effort to de-escalate and to try to talk their way through these events. And they dealt with individuals of varying levels of force in response, including threatening an individual with a knife, another individual that appeared to have a harpoon type weapon, and then this last individual that the less lethal was physical force, and it took a number of individuals as they're attempting to control him. But in each of these instances, I know our officers, I'm watching the same video, they made efforts. Now, our evaluation of whether their efforts were sufficient, they met our expectations, has not yet been done. In fairness to everyone involved, I'm asking the public and everyone to give us time. But we will continue to look at our policies and our procedures and how we go about this work in an effort to ensure people's trust in our work.
That's fair. I want to talk about staffing in your department. The department is understaffed, right? Would
Yes.
you acknowledge that?
Oh, yes.
So now you're talking about hiring retired officers.
It is. It talks about the critical shortage of personnel that we have. The ability of the department to recall officers who have previously served and have retired is a little used option, but it speaks to the size of the enormity of the challenge we have. I'm encouraged by Mayor Bass's commitment to restore and rebuild our workforce, that we're down hundreds and hundreds of officers and professional civilian personnel. That has resulted in us having to reduce the work size of the workforce, but also the work that we do. So we need to rebuild that workforce. Mayor Bass is committed to rebuilding us to 9,700 sworn, to restoring our civilian positions. But to do that, we need to hire more. We need to hire many more in a very difficult job environment. I'm looking forward to the council supporting hiring incentives in addition to what the foundation has done and what we're doing to improve the process. But as an interim measure, we're having to resort to this, but it's certainly not a long-term fix.
Well, you're not the only department having this problem, right? I mean, since 2020, we've seen departments across the country really go through this type of situation. What's unique here, though, is that you're in the last year of your term. You're having lots of conversations with Mayor Bass as to whether you'll be reappointed or not. It would be nice to get her backing, because then everyone else may follow suit. Where are we at in those conversations? And you've said that even if you were reappointed, you may not fulfill the full 5-year term.
Well, so the process is ongoing right now. Just this last Tuesday night, the Board of Police Commissioners held a 2-hour session of taking public input, in which I attended and listened to intently. That was the second meeting of taking public comment, and the public has been providing members of the communities of all walks of life have been providing emails and letters and phone calls, and the process of the commission also has began their discussions with me as to my past performance and what questions they have about my future and what the future of this organization and what I envision. And I look for that process to continue, and I look forward to the outcome of it.
Has it been tough for you? There's been some criticism as to, since 2020, especially with these use of forces and your handling of some of these situations during the protests of George Floyd. Is it hard for you to hear some of this?
Of course. I mean, we would love to have, all of us wish to have the approbation of every counter and everything we do. But this is a difficult job. Law enforcement, the men and women that I get to represent and tell their story, have one of the hardest jobs in America. And there are critics on the far right and left and all the way between. We need to find our success. I'm proud of the success that we've had during my tenure and during my decades of service. I believe that policing has improved and that we're a safer city. But we have more work in front of us. I'm excited to be a part of that. I believe I can be effective in that, and I look forward to the board's decision as we move forward.
Chief Michael Moore, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate hearing from you directly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we're having you back.
Absolutely.
We're committing you.
Every month. Don't try to skip out on us.
Look, it's good to be back in studio. I'll say that.
Okay. Yes, it is. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.